So welcome to day 2 of Ready to Teach Week. It's lovely to see you all joining us this morning, where this is setting up for a successful semester, which is designed, well, I'll go into that in a minute. I'll just go through and... Okay, so I'd also like to do an acknowledgement of country. So we, as in the University of Queensland, would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the land on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors. And I would also like to recognise the valuable contribution in terms of education that the traditional owners bring to each and every day. And yesterday I was working in a workshop, and the presenter actually talked about not only acknowledging the country in which you are currently on, but acknowledging the country that you came from. So I'm actually from Western Australia, which is from the Noongar people in Mandurah. But interestingly enough, and this is a fact that I found out yesterday, was that Mandurah is actually it was originally from Manjugu Dap, which translates as meeting place of the heart, which I thought was kind of nice. Anyway, we digress. So setting up for a semester, or what I would like to think about is communication. So Sari Balker and I are going to talk you through a number of different things today. So my name is Sheppard. I'm a learning designer with Italy, and I've worked across the university in lots of different places. Shari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Karen. Hi, everybody. My name is Shari Bowker. I'm also a learning designer in Italy. I work alongside Karen, but I specialize in e-portfolio pedagogies.
Okay, so what we're thinking about doing today is skipping through, and it is a very, very quick look at lots of different things. I'd like to think of it like as a sample plate that you can try lots of different things, and then you can go further investigating different spaces and places. So your electronic course profile, strategies to minimise hassle with your Learn and Blackboard site, thinking about purposely designing your communication strategy for your students, thinking about your expectations and your students' expectations. We'd also like to build into that kind of a narrative where you do think about yourself and think about making your life as simple as possible within the constraints of running a course. And I'd like to, another point from one of yesterday's presentations, where Rachel Fitzgerald said in the opening session that post-COVID we realised how important community is. And I'd like you to take this thought into today's session about how we build community in our classes, I suppose. And this is a lot around that narrative of sense of belonging. It's around building kind of a relationships with people in your course. So that's where I'd like to start with today. Okay, again, there's lots of caveats to this. These are interesting times. Things do change from week to week, from day to day, and month to month, as we've watched with ChatGPT in our new spaces this year. So, and I'd like to point out that if you're new to UQ, that different schools, different degrees, different faculties have varying policies and different rules. So this is about a range of ideas. So please think about choosing what works best for you, rather than trying to take what we talk about and what other people talk about, and think about how you can best make it work for you. So I'd like to start out, and I found this last night, but interestingly enough, around that idea about communication and getting things right, I happen to follow Stalker Space, which for anybody new to UQ is one of the 2 spaces that students post in. It's actually hosted by a long-term union member, Rowan Evans, I believe his name is. But Anyway, so last night I happened to be putting some finishing touches to this presentation, and I looked at this and it says, shout out to all course coordinators who've already uploaded their ECPs. So just like thinking about how important that's kinds of things for the students are. So yesterday, or a couple of days ago, I think it was just yesterday, I asked you if you had any burning questions. And let me just find that. While I'm sitting here, finding that the summary of that, would anybody like to just pop in and tell me your circumstances and tell me if you have any burning questions that you'd like to talk about today?
And you can unmute if you'd like, or I'm monitoring the chat. If you're more comfortable typing into the chat, then that's okay as well.
So burning questions from yesterday? No burning questions. Thank you. So we're thinking about small project-based learning group. I'd like to start the semester really bonding them as a collaborative team. Okay, so that's where we're at here. Talking about Blackboard, Learn.UQ, how to assess teachers work through the quality of their teaching, and the three most important things to connect your students before February the 20th. And I think we've actually done number one. You reckon, Barry?
Yeah, I think so.
The ECP, obviously, yeah. Space. Sophie, you've just popped in. Did you have a question?
No, but that was my burning question about small project-based group, and you read it, so I thought I should say hi, that's me. Thank you.
Excellent. Lovely. Thank you for posting. I mean, a poll at the beginning of the session is one way you can start that communication space up as well. So just working through, and if you could put your hand up just in the simple. So who's teaching focused in the room? Teaching focused. Yeah, research focused. Nice. Combination. PNR. Who's course coordinating? Who's lecturing? Just lecturing into a course? Nice. Who's in kind of admin support or learning designer? Okay, nice. Okay, so we're a mixed group, so I think we can learn from each other in this respect. Okay, so the first thing I think we need to do is just a bit like what I've just done, is think about who your students are. Do you know? How do you find out? We recommend thinking about, some people have done a lot of work around a tool called Course Insights. Okay, it's a learning analytics tool. But it actually provides you, it's in your Blackboard or Learn.UQ site, down in the tools-based site. It can provide you with lots of information. This slide here, I would recommend, and I will share these slides with you, I recommend you could work through this as a way to understand how you can use knowledge about your students through Course Insights, their engagement, how they're doing in their assessments, and what they're actually engaging with online as a really useful tool. So it's available, as I said, if you do a common enough search, you'll find it. It's worth having a look at right at the very beginning before you actually go into your course design, and think about what it can provide you with. We have a really dedicated team that you can contact, and there are the website, the e-learning website has lots of information. Sure. Sherry, can you put that link up in the chat for me?
Yep, I'll do that. Give me a sec.
Okay, so I will share this slide with you. And as I said, it's a very quick tour of that, but it's worth worth reaching out to the Course Insights team, because they always interested in finding people who want to do a dedicated project. So if you wanted to start from the very beginning of your course, they can design different filters and provide you with different sets of information as you go. So you can book a session with them. That's what it looks like at its most basic, but it's evolved over the years, and it's worth engaging with. As you go into your course and preparing for teaching this year, you might also like to think about the feedback that is already there. So if you're new to UQ or you're new to the course, think about the previous feedback. Now I've got the CCAPs there, which is student experience of course and teaching. Hopefully that somebody has filled you in on that, but make sure you go and have a look at that. Your own experience, if you've been involved in the course before, think about other course coordinators. School managers are a wealth of information. Ask the question, what's worked, what didn't work, why didn't it work, and what could be done about it. So you're not starting from scratch, basically. So one of our biggest pieces of advice is to ensure that there is consistency of communication across the course. And this make sure that, because being UQ, it has this information in lots of different spaces. Sorry, would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
So the first place it sits is in the electronic course profile, or the ECP. Now, the ECP is moving to a new space. The course profiles are moving to a new space, but for now, hopefully later in 2023, but as always, we still have to deal with the here and now. So just a heads up, it'll be, if somebody starts talking about Jack, then that's what they're talking about. So it's our new course profile and curriculum planning tool that's not coming into play until later this year. So the electronic course profile, ECP, it's one of the spaces we keep our information about for our students. The other space is the Learn.UQ, or the Blackboard site, as most people talk about it. And it looks a bit like this. We have got a new landing page, which, hang on, there is a new landing page, which I've got the link for that later on, so I'll share with that. And other places, there's places like the Edge platform in edX. So you've got a number of different spaces where the students get their information from. Which comes first? Okay, ECP. Never neglect your ECP and neglect your ECP at your peril. Okay, it is a single point of truth. It's the one that people go to for professional accreditation. It likes being there. Don't mess around with it. Everybody gets unhappy if you start messing around with it. It does have end dates. And I know for a fact that many colleagues of mine are currently working through ECPs and checking them. So it's an important part of what goes on. So making sure that your ECP is spot on is beneficial. It's beneficial for you and beneficial for your students. Beneficial for you because if you don't get it right, your students will come back and go, but you said this in your ECP. So be very, very prepared to make sure that that your ECP has everything. Can you?
Yep, I'll do that.
Thank you. Okay, so making sure your ECP organisation, there are training sites to look at, and Sherry's going to pop those in the site for you later on as to look at as well. Okay, so this is going to be an absolute swim through very quickly. The ECP is a complicated beast. Now, if you're all over your ECP, switch off now and check your emails. But if you're not, then here's some little bits of advice that we can give to you. Shari, is there any questions or anything that we need to deal with at this point?
I'm wondering if somebody is teaching into a course and there isn't an ECP, who do they talk to? What should they do?
Okay, so there will be an ECP somewhere that they'll need to go to their school manager. Are they a course coordinator or they're not a course coordinator, they're just a lecturer?
I just mean in general, yeah, if there's somebody here who doesn't have.
Oh, okay. So yeah, school managers tend to be the people that you need to talk to. But if you're a lecturer teaching into a particular course, which often comes if you're from a research institute, then go and find a course coordinator. Now, some people, and this is the other problem, is sometimes people don't know their course coordinating to the very end. But usually there'll be some kind, unless it's a brand new course, there will be an ECPs from the year before. So those can be copy and pasted across to the next year. So as we said, it's a legal document. It's used for accreditation. Every student has access to every ECP and they can access them across the Blackboard site and in Signet. Okay, important that your students understand what the ECP is. Take them through it on your first session. Not everybody will be posting on Stalker Space going shout out to course coords. Making sure, I was reminded this yesterday when we were the evaluation team was talking about the student experience surveys. If you in the course staff space, if you want to make sure that you have if you're a course coordinator, you need to be there as a course coordinator, but you also need to be there as the lecturer. Otherwise, you won't get a teaching CCAT. Think about whether or not you're going to put your tutors in there. There is a set, something we called a set tutor, which is an evaluation, a student evaluation for tutors as well. Think about if you're guest lecturers don't get CCATs, but by special engagement, sometimes they do. But you have to, the evaluation team is open to anything. Think about the resources that you need to provide. What do your students need? Include all of those details in there. Think about your library resources register. And I think at this point in time, that was like 8 weeks ago that you need, it's a goodly amount of time that they expect the library wants those resources registered with them. Thinking about ebook access licensing, and don't assume that your students will know that they need these things. Often the learning resources thing is often used to be a standard statement, but worth checking with your students, checking with the school and checking with your students. Check through your ECP, your other resources. You might want to give the details around what you think that they're going to need. Is there anything, other things, like think about what you mean by recommended texts and or versus required. What does that mean? What does that cost? Will they be able to access them in the library? If they do access it in the library, how many copies, electronic copies and real copies are in the library? So think about lots of different things like that. Again, the idea is the course schedule is in one location only. So if it's in your ECP, so you have a link to that course schedule from your Blackboard site. Don't have two separate timetables because that can be very, very confusing. Okay, make sure, as it says, in one place. So if you have to make a correction, you can. Think about all the teaching and learning activities you're going to take them through. And I'll just let you think about that. As you note, these things are in sections in your ECP. If you have internal or external modes, often people are still teaching into, particularly those who teach master's programs alongside undergrad. And so often that's like an internal undergrad and an external master's program. Think about how you're going to manage that, those study modes. Think about student experience. Doesn't necessarily have to be equal, but it has to be equitable. So think about what that might mean in that particular space. Okay, so make sure your assessment is spot on, make sure it complies with the current policy, and you can find that in the PPL, which I'm having a mind blank, sorry. What's the PPL?
I will find it and I will put it into the chat.
Policy and something or other, library.
Policy and procedures library.
Policy and procedures. There you go, policy and procedures. So if you're new to UQ, go and find the policy and procedures library. It should be pretty dry. If you need to work out how to go to sleep at night, then read your policy and procedures library. But essentially, make sure that you kind of understand where policy is, particularly around assessment.
Karen, can I jump in? Something, yes, it is a bit as a snooze fest, but something that I refer to in the PPL often is, like you said, the assessments. When we're looking to write rubrics, being aware that there are grade descriptors, criteria descriptors that help ensure that we have consistency across our rubrics, across our assessments. So that's something as a learning designer that I refer to often. So I have that page in particular bookmarked. So if you are about to design rubrics, then definitely checking out that PPL for our grade descriptors is a win.
Thank you. Think about, in this day and age, think about invigilated exams, and at the moment, given that the disruption of new AI tools, thinking about how you might, if you are designing assessment, thinking about how that's going to work in this space. Now, we're not going to go down that path with you today, but at the moment, there's the Problem Cafe is the next session on, which is face-to-face downstairs in building 17202. Is going to be going through that. There is lots of different places that you can investigate. I'd advise you to perhaps talk to your school around any changes in assessment that you might have to think about in that respect. That's your assessment summary. Don't forget that late submission. Have you got what's the policy around late submission? How do students apply for an extension? Does anybody know how students apply for an extension? Okay, so students apply for an extension, not with you. There actually is a website which, Shari, can you just find that? There's a website that they go to. So it doesn't go through you, it goes through a central space that gives you a help with that. And
just pop two links in there. Sorry, everybody, two links in there. One is to the PPL, which we love. And then there's that applying for extension link as well. Yeah.
So make sure that you're very clear, again, around that communication idea, very clear about how you're going to manage assessment and how you're going to manage extensions. So all of those kinds of things need to be upfront at the beginning. So think about your first lecture and designing how they're going to navigate the course. Now, some people, one of the Chem 1100, Gwen Laurie, actually has a whole flow chart that describes for her students how they navigate the course. And she bookmarks it in the front of their Blackboard site so that, you know, if this happens, do this, if this happens, do this, this is what you'll be doing here. So think about how you're going to communicate these different requirements to your students.
That's especially important for our first years, you know, who are new to UQ.
Yeah, and so that Chem 1100 course has got, like, you know, 950 students. So
you just saved yourself 950 emails. Woo!
Exactly. Yeah, so writing all that in the assessment. Don't forget, if you're setting up an assessment schedule, think about whether or not students are going to have to do every single assignment. Are any of your assessments going to be hurdles? So ergo pass fail. If they don't pass it, they can't pass the course. Think about all your learning objectives. And if the students only do 2 out of 3 but do exceptionally well, do you expect them to do the 3rd assignment? So these are the kinds of things you will need to include in your ECP. Okay, extension request, there's the link for that one. You might like to explain in your ECP, so you say the course learning objectives are covered across the 3 assessments, therefore all assessments need to be submitted to pass this course. Or something like a reasonable attempt is need to be made on all assignments. But again, the question lies, how do you define a reasonable attempt? Okay, now there's a common narrative that students don't check their Blackboard site or they don't read their emails. Maybe they don't read their emails, but they will check their Blackboard site when assessments are due. So think about that and think about what you're going to be posting there and how important it is to kind of set up that communication with your students. There's a lot of disclaimers here that might be able to help you out. I won't go through those. Think about how you're going to deliver your learning content. And this is if you're brand new, think about the current systems that UQ has in place in their learning spaces. Now, not all learning spaces are equal. So my advice to you, if you are new, then go and investigate where you're going to be teaching a couple of days before to kind of set it up and understand what you're going to be doing, what you're faced with. There are different training programs or training kind of tips that if you're going to go to this particular link, you can work through it. Hands up, could somebody indicate if you're brand new to UQ and you're lecturing in a couple of weeks' time? Anybody, if you want to unmute, brand new?
Yeah, there's a few people, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lots.
Okay, so again, and speaking from experience, and you're not quite sure what's happened over the summer semester, it's worth going and checking, making sure that you understand how to log in. As somebody said the other day, I don't want to we shouldn't have to take 100 clicks to get into a system, particularly if you're doing in dual mode. At the moment you do. So for words from the wise, who go and check where you're teaching and work through it. Today at lunchtime, or you can actually get advice from e-learning or a learning designer, and they will meet you in the space and take you through how to set it up. So I can't stress how important it is that you kind of get an understanding of what's going on, because it will take time to set up. Even if you're not doing it in dual mode, it will take time to set it up. Is that your experience, Shari?
Yeah, it also alleviates that first day anxiety for new people. I used to be a teacher as well, and that's something I've definitely always do, check out that space before any presentation, going and checking it out and visualizing, this is where I'm going to be, and can I, where do I want students to sit? How am I going to manage this room? So yeah, I've got Erin. Thanks, Erin. My experience from last semester, it takes about 8 to 10 minutes to get fully set up for hybrid dual mode. Thanks, Erin. Absolutely. So that means arriving early to the venue and always account for something going wrong, which it may. So get there early and give your time ample time to set up so that that isn't taking up your brain space on the day.
Yeah. So, and the other issue around that is being aware and hoping that. And then, so just an advice. Yeah, okay. That was the point I was just about to make, Trevor. Actually. If you're the person who's been there before you, they're supposed to be out only 10 minutes to the hour, but often we find that that's not the case. So if you're playing it forward and in terms of good communication, that ensuring that you get out at 10 minutes to the hour as well for your your colleagues. And I note that, what was that? I just missed that. Shirley noted that our IT system, they are very good. So, and don't hesitate to ring them. Okay.
Yeah, don't get stuck and do nothing and sweat it out. Absolutely pick up the phone. There'll be a phone in the room and you'll have your AV contact there. Call them, get help.
Yeah. But yes, so hopefully just checking out the system will save you a lot of stress. Now, the Blackboard site, until about 10 years ago, well, when we shifted to Blackboard, we didn't necessarily have any guidelines or standardization process. But over the years, we have developed standard course guidelines for, oh, there you go, Armando. AC has got me out of more than one tech failure.
Yeah,
Nice.
same.
Thank you. Okay, so the course guidelines, there's recommended guidelines and then there's enhancements. Now, just to let you know that there is a new
It's in the chat, there you go.
page. Yep. Okay. So there's a new one here. You can just have a quick look at it. I'm not going to go through it today in terms of we haven't got that much time, but this is what it looks like. Sorry, this is not what it looks like. This is the information that you need to go to help you out to understand that. So it's a bit confusing, but anyway, but behind that all, it still fits. Basically, this is what the students see. Thinking about having an optimized and consistent menu structure is really important. Course banner and a welcome message. All of these things are standardized and essential part of what's going on. And making sure the course coordinator is at the top. Ideas around contact for course coordinators and photographs with contact details. Photographs are very important, particularly if you're managing a large course and things around students wanting to know who they can go to. It also becomes important when you're looking for your student experience surveys as well. Ensuring there's all the details about tutorial sessions. These ones haven't actually got Zoom links on them, but obviously you need to post your Zoom links as well. And all the other details around what we were talking about before from the ECP. Working through lecture recordings, make sure your lecture recordings are clearly identified and that you set them up in a easily accessible and like the links through so that students can see, because there's nothing worse than trying to navigate somewhere where you've just put all of those bits and pieces in different spaces. Okay, so people do it either module-based or week-based, and make sure the other thing is ensuring that the naming conventions that you use work across the different spaces. I'm just going to quickly, okay, so you can see how you can set it up here. Again, I will send, you can see this link. Where it says article reference and library link, not PDF, the issue around that is ensuring that you're not breaking copyright, which can sometimes happen if you provide them with a PDF rather than the link to the library. So just quickly direct what to do with content. So you can see lots of hints about where to manage these things. And quickly screenshot from the ECP for consistency again. How are we going there, Shari? Questions?
Nope, nothing in the chat right now.
Okay, cool.
People have asked, where do we find the phone number? And Emily said it's usually in the system. There's usually a little information sheet that has everything that you need, IT and AV.
Yeah, yeah, and so back in the classroom.
Yeah, back in the classroom.
Back in the classroom, there's a 3-pager that's worth engaging with. It's not. it's not too bad. It describes mostly, but just if you familiarise yourself with it, it's a useful exercise. Again, that can't reiterate enough. Titles identical to those in the ECP. Make sure you have consistency across your titles. And everything about your assessment. Assessment drives learning and assessment drives students. Okay, submission instructions in each of the assessment folder, ECP references, and the market rubric. Do you want to talk about that, Shari? Because you know all about that stuff.
Marking rubrics. I don't think we have enough time today to talk about rubrics. If you have trouble or if you need learning design support, you can reach out to your school or faculty. And equally here in Italy, we have many learning designers who specialize across various things, various disciplines, but ask your school for learning design support, and learning designers can help you. We're the pedagogical link, usually having postgrad qualifications in education, and we are here to help support you in constructing your teaching and learning, and that includes assessments.
So yes, so now, in recent times, and the story, oh, what's that going to, why do we have to duplicate? I'm not sure we've got that much time. So the ECP is the public document, Andreas, and the Blackboard is the site that sits, that belongs to you and your course and your students. So kind of the Blackboard's a learning management system, and the electronic course profile is where you have that outside data that's available to the world essentially.
Your legal contract, your learning contract with the students and the university. And like Karen was mentioning, it is legally binding for accreditation as well. And it's how we show proof of what students intend to learn that they've learned. It contains in that legal document in the ECP, where your LMS, your learning management system, which is Blackboard, is your day-to-day place of where students go to access all teaching and learning materials. Does that make sense? Yeah, great. Yeah.
So now this is
Laurie, just one more thing, Karen. Is the ECP not present on Blackboard? Yes, it is. Your ECP is linked in your Blackboard site.
Yeah. So the
hello. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, but I mean I understand the difference between ECP and Blackboard. That's not the question. The question is why we have to screenshot and paste in Blackboard what is already on the ECP if the student can have access to the ECP all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Can we just refer to ECP and that's it? I don't understand why we have to have information duplicated for the students. Isn't that even more confusing for them?
So you don't necessarily have to, I mean, the screenshot was a suggestion. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can just link in Blackboard, in the Blackboard site, you can just link that to the ECP from there.
And say refer to the ECP. You absolutely can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, but why will be the suggestion then? Why you suggest to have the information duplicated?
I guess it's only it's a suggestion in terms of I guess making it easy for the students. And as Veronica suggests best to double repeat things. Again, I understand that it is it may not kind of be the best option, but it is like possibly at this point in time we're trying to.
Yeah, I mean, like the question will be if the students are expecting that the information is in the Blackboard because everybody is duplicating the information, or if the students are not expecting that. Just because I'm new, I just want to give the students what they are expecting, and I don't want to be different across other courses. You know what I mean? Like if everybody is duplicating the information, then I have to do that. But if just a few are doing that, you know, like what I'm struggling with.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it's interesting to ask the other course coordinators and the other experienced lecturers who have or haven't done that. Trevor says students will go to Blackboard on a regular basis. And they want to find a quick fix to get information. They don't read things in depth. Yeah, it's a nice visual to remind students of what the expectation is in the ECP, but it is up to you as a course coordinator or a lecturer to set that tone and set the expectation. If you want to tell students refer to the ECP, that's okay. If you'd like to provide them a visual of the overall assessment strategy, then that's okay too.
Okay, Trevor suggested that he won't go to the ECP unless it's about assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Erin,
easy.
yeah.
Oh, you go, Sherry.
I was gonna say, Erin suggests.
Everybody is
Yeah.
agreeing on having the information duplicated.
Yeah.
Because the students will not read the ECP too much. Is that?
Oh, and Julianne, from an interesting point of view, as a previous student, I always find it useful to have everything in Blackboard. Thanks for that, Julianne.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just because I'm brand new and I'm coming from another university system and
Yeah. Absolutely, and
Perfect.
I understand that. Yes, it's
Awesome. Thank you.
It's complicated. So we set up the UQ digital teaching threshold standards. So it's and I won't go into it right now, but it is an opportunity where you can go through your how you set up your course with a learning designer and or a fellow course coordinator, and work through whether you've ticked all the boxes in terms of these threshold standards. So that's another thinking process for later on. And don't forget that in your in your Blackboard site, you can actually look at it. You can see a student view to see what your students are viewing. Always useful because sometimes you might forget to publish. So make sure you double check, and you can look at what the students can see in the student preview by becoming a student feature. Okay, so what we've been talking about in this last 43 minutes is about essentially communicating with your students, how your students communicate to you to your students, and how you're going to manage their expectations. And the conversation we've just had with Andres is very indicative of how complex that can be, or on the other hand, how simple. So one of our colleagues who we had planned to have in here, who's Professor Kate O'Brien, who's a very experienced course coordinator. She has a step-by-step plan that she calls it ruthless compassion. And she starts her presentation off by how not to train wreck your course. So she sets up like this 5-point plan in kind of making sure that you understand what your students expect of you and what students can expect from you. So this idea of expectations, your role, your student role, and your tutor's role. And that can be, that's entirely up to you how you set up those expectations, but just make them, everybody understands what they are. So this communication, that it's polite and respectable, and you can kind of communicate about things like plagiarism, integrity, setting up the learning objectives. And when she says ruthless compassion, she's talking about setting clear expectations, which encourage their students to take responsibility for their own learning. And I think that's kind of coming through in particularly around students who are successful. And we were talking about yesterday about self-regulated learning, students that take responsibility and they manage their own learning. So the idea that you're communicating with your students, making sure that you're kind of motivating your students and not demotivating them. And I think that we were talking a little bit about this earlier, and in some of the sessions that this week are talking about creating connections. So if you managed, did anybody see yesterday's session about rummaging through your suitcase? Yeah, so there's a recording there, and that talks about a number of different just techniques across the way and how you can set up these, creating these connections, which I think somebody asked the question about, top 3 things you can do to kind of create those connections with your students and set up that two-way conversation. So yes, how do you access the session recording? So I'll let you know right in just after at the end. So this idea of creating connections, even it's just passing the time of day, managing, understanding how you're going to manage your discussion boards, ensuring that your consultation times are set and also available to your students. And I guess her advice is also that you learn to listen to your students. And that might be setting up feedback loops. And you, Shari, you've been working in a little bit in feedback loop space, haven't you, at different points in time?
Yeah, absolutely. Giving opportunities for students to providing feedback that is timely, giving opportunities for them to use that feedback while they're still in that course rather than the feedback coming at the end. And something else that Associate Professor Kelly Matthews here in Italy, something she spoke about last year in Ready to Teach Week, is around setting up a weekly rhythm where each week she follows through the same steps of activities, followed by communication, followed by group work, followed by tutorial, followed by the workshop. And it's the same every week, and you fall into that rhythm with your students. And that's, again, adhering to those expectations. Students know when they can ask questions, when the answers will come, when the feedback will come, when they can work in groups, etc. Every week, a weekly rhythm. And once you fall into that, it'll be much easier to manage that course in addition to your other teaching and learning commitments.
Like a train your dragon, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So I love that idea, that idea, and training your dragon. The rhythm, setting a rhythm, it sounds like a much better thing. So what else is people talking about advice in the chat there?
Got lots of advice coming
Trevor,
through. Yeah.
Trevor, yeah.
A good week in advance. I found it good to provide a week in advance notice sent every Monday. That's part of that weekly rhythm, isn't it, Trevor? Yeah.
Okay, so recommendations, and I guess that's a bit pretty much around that, setting up the expectations clearly. Guidelines in place, that's about that rhythm. Don't forget the students need reminding. And then obviously if you set up that rhythm, then it greatly reduces the amount of emails that are going to come into your inbox. So efficiency and, oh yes. Veronica, do you want to talk a little bit about that, the learning pathway?
Yes, it's one of the, I don't know how you call it, Shari, it's one of the function on Blackboard, is that how you would say?
Yeah,
anyway,
that's right.
So it's and you can set it up as a landing page so that when people click on Blackboard, it's straight away coming up. It shows you the week by week of the semester, and you can put little icons to say when, you know, something is due, or if you've got weekly quizzes. So I change the color as we're going through, whether they've completed it or not. And you can also set up the direct links to your learning resources. So each week I have read this, and it takes them to the announcement, course preparation. It takes them to the reading material, link to the Zoom recording, because this particular course I'm talking about, I'm teaching externally only, you know, so it's just a landing exactly like this. Yes, and it takes you straight away to the links into the learning resource. And comments have always been, so I think we started it last year, was it, or end of 2021, and I took it on straight away, and students say, oh, it's so easy to follow.
Thank you. Okay, and so you can see that up on that's our Teaching at UQ site. So you can, and we've tracked it across sessions. Yeah, and as the Blackboard announcements, we've got them at the top there. Okay, you can see how you can set that up as well.
So on the learning pathway, you can totally tailor it to your own choices. So you don't have to follow what's there. You can tailor it totally as you want, and put some pretty colors and things as well.
Nice. We didn't go that far. We had, but yeah, look, I mean, I think taking that time to kind of design that communication structure is the important part of what we're saying here. So I think purposeful is probably a good way to describe it. Okay, think about how your students are going to communicate with you, whether that's through a discussion board, whether it's via email. Think about who's going to monitor those discussion boards. Is it you? Is it a tutor? Are you going to ask a tutor to do it, one day at a time? Think about how you're going to work that. Again, efficiency and equity. And if you have students that ask you questions, okay, so and this is I think this is one of like my top 5 pieces of advice, is ensuring that you don't answer that individual question to that student, that you make sure that you say, that's a great question, can you post it on the A, B, C, or D? Because again, there's that equity and inclusion, understanding that everybody gets the same answer. Okay, so again, setting correct hours. I mean, if you want to set up a communication policy, it doesn't have to be quite as transactional as this. It can be a little bit more fun, but it also kind of gives you it makes it clear in your head what you want to do. Yesterday, in the rummaging in the suitcase thing, they talked about a welcome letter or video. Somebody was actually playing. They set up a space where she played her. What was it? Bassoon, in fact.
An oboe. Sophie says oboe.
Yeah. So there's different ways people kind of connect with people, and I guess making us all human, I suppose. Again, announcements. So I guess in this last little space, I would like to leave a little bit of moment for like reflecting. So bringing it together, think about, does your ECP reflect what you want to happen in your course? Is there consistency across all those modes of communication? Think about what your communication strategies might be like. Will they meet your expectations? Do they meet, and will they meet the students' expectations? Because remember, this is a two-way street. And think about the other issues that you might like to consider. Now, already we've got 65 things in the chat. And what that tells me is that your colleagues are your best source of support in kind of like, so reaching out, and I'm not just talking about the colleagues down the hallway, I'm talking about colleagues across the university. So setting up networks around different people can be a really useful exercise. Okay, so I'm not going to take you through all of these, but we will send you the the link to this, or send you this PowerPoint. And these are Kate, when she couldn't come, she had set up, and they'd spent a lot of time, and I'll just like flick, you can see these are highly experienced course coordinators, and they've all produced different slides to support their, things that they've found over the years. And yes, certainly we will give you access to the slides, Andreas. So here to help. So your colleagues across the university are here to help. We, particularly at Italy, can provide support. See some of the themes we've covered. There's lots of different resources, training opportunities. E-learning is a wealth of information. There is an A to Z on different training programs. If it's not there, then you can book an hour-long appointment with different people across the university. If it's about tools, the e-learning provide you. If you just wanted to sit down and talk to a learning designer, there's appointments across every single week. So if you've just got no questions, you just want to talk about stuff, then feel free to reach out to all of us. You can see the different things. There's peer observation, there's the open course scheme where you can go and look at somebody else teaching, one-to-one to support. There's online resources, and there's professional learning. Okay, and there's the e-learning systems. Okay, so that's us. And we've skipped in under 4. That's like a very, very jam-packed session. And I'm kind of hoping that we covered some of your questions. But is there any questions that in the chat, Shari, that we need to answer?
No, there's nothing right now. No, but some thank yous coming through. You're most welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
If you need to leave and you have 10 o'clock. Thank you so much. Otherwise, feel free to unmute and you can ask away.
Yeah. So,
yes, we will. We'll distribute the slides.
Yeah. So what we'll do, the slides will go out to you if you're registered. The recording will be on. Will be posted later in the week or probably early next week
on the Italy website. And there you have access as well as a staff to view previous recordings and seminars from previous years as well. So there's heaps of things in there to have a look at.
Yeah, but don't forget, reach out. Feel free to book an appointment. E-learning, there's e-learning or learning designers. Happy to just have a chat.
Andreas asked, are we at Gatton?
We can be at Gatton, Andreas. In fact, we're going on a road. We're going out there next week, not next week, the week after, to set up some sessions. But in between, so you based out there, Andre?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. I was just wondering if it is possible to have a face-to-face meeting with someone of your team to sit down and have some chat.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in SAFs, are you?
Yes. Got it.
So Suresh is
Suresh?
Yeah, Suresh is your learning designer. That's right. E-learning is based here in St. Lucia, so you'd have to do a Zoom meeting with them. But as far as your learning design, your pedagogical support, you do have Suresh.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So you can reach out to him, but other than that, you can set up a Zoom meeting with anybody during the weeks to sort those things out if you want.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the talk.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming, Veronique. Somebody so experienced like Veronique. Good reminder, she says.